All right, for today's explainer, we're diving into something I'm willing to bet you never saw in your school days. A 6th grade math worksheet. But this isn't just any worksheet. It uses a 2,000-year-old miracle to teach the absolute basics of algebra. Yeah, you heard that right. So the big question is, can a story that's thousands of years old actually be a good way to teach one of the trickiest subjects for a lot of kids? I mean, can a miracle really explain math? That's what we're going to dig into. Let's see how they pull this off. And look, this isn't just some cutesy theme they slapped on top. The worksheet is totally upfront about it. It says, hey, we're going to show you how even Jesus used multiplication and division. So how exactly does that work? Let's take a look. So the lesson zeroes in on one very specific story. You've probably heard of it. It's one of the most famous miracles in the New Testament, all about multiplication, the feeding of the 5,000. Okay, so the worksheet lays out the whole scenario for us. Picture this. You've got a giant crowd, right? 5,000 people. And what do you have to feed them? 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. That's it. Just 7 little items in total. So the big question, the math problem, is pretty straightforward. How much food does each person actually get? And this is the moment where the story turns into algebra. It's pretty clever, actually. The worksheet translates it into an equation with one variable. So you have your 7 food items on one side of the equal sign, and on the other side, you have the 5,000 people, each getting some unknown amount of food. And that unknown amount, that's our x. Our job is to figure out what x is.
All right, so how in the world do we solve for x? Well, the lesson brings in a really fundamental concept here. And this isn't just some one-off trick, you guys. This is the absolute key to solving pretty much any basic algebra problem you'll ever see.
So here's the core analogy they use, and it's a great one. Think of an equation as a perfectly balanced scale. You know, the old-timey kind with 2 dishes. This visual is everything. It means whatever is on the left side weighs exactly the same as what's on the right. And if you add or remove something from one side, what happens? The whole thing tips over, unless you do the exact same thing to the other side to keep it perfectly level. And that simple idea leads us to what the worksheet calls the golden rule of algebra. And it's super simple. Keep the scale balanced. That's it. Whatever you do to one side, whether you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing, you have to do the exact same thing to the other side. No exceptions, keep it balanced. Okay, armed with that golden rule, let's head back to our miracle. It's time to use this balanced scale idea to actually solve the equation and figure out what x is. So, how do we put this into practice? Well, first things first, let's simplify our equation. We have 7 on one side and 5,000 times x on the other. Now, the whole point here is to get x all by itself. We want to isolate it. So how do we undo that times 5,000? We do the opposite. The inverse operation is division, so we divide that side by 5,000. But wait, what's the golden rule? To keep the scale balanced, we have to do the exact same thing to the other side, so we divide the 7 by 5,000 as well. And boom, there's our answer. X equals 7 over 5,000, or 750,000. And the worksheet points out, yeah, that's a tiny, tiny fraction of food for each person, but that's kind of the whole point, right? It frames it as the perfect mathematical example of how something really small can stretch, well, miraculously. Okay, and this next part is maybe the most important part of the whole lesson. This is where it all clicks. The worksheet shows that the logic we just used, it's got nothing to do with loaves and fishes, really. It's the universal method for solving all kinds of problems that look like this. Just look at this comparison. On the left, you've got our miracle problem. On the right, a totally normal, boring practice problem. The numbers are different, the stories are different, but check out the method. It's identical. In both cases, what's the goal? Get x by itself. And how do you do it? You divide both sides by the number that's next to the x. See? The underlying principle is exactly the same. It's the same move every time. And they drill this home with another quick example, just to show it works for other operations too. Say you have x plus 7 equals 12. What do? You want to get x alone. So you do the opposite of adding 7, which is subtracting 7. And you do it to both sides, right? To keep that scale balanced. And what do you get? X equals 5. The rule works every single time. So, okay, we've got the mechanics down, but what's the point of all this? What's the bigger takeaway? Well, the worksheet actually has a whole section called The Big Idea that tells us exactly why they think this is so important. So the big idea is really about changing how we think about algebra. Instead of just a bunch of random rules, they want you to see it as a tool for solving mysteries and finding unknown information. They connect it to real-life stuff like dividing food or sharing gifts, and even this idea of balancing your life.
It's a direct shot at answering that question every single math student has asked, when am I ever going to use this in real life?
And then, to bring it all full circle, the lesson grounds itself right back in the original story. It includes a Bible verse of the day, which is the exact passage from the Gospel of Matthew that describes the moment the miracle gets started. And here's the final bow on top. The worksheet ties everything together with one last thought. It connects the math conclusion, that tiny fraction we calculated, directly back to the spiritual theme of the whole story. It's this idea that when you have faith, even a small equation or a small amount of food can have miraculous results. When you step back and look at it, this whole worksheet is just a really fascinating example of creative teaching, isn't it? It takes a powerful story that a lot of people already know and uses it to make something as abstract as algebra feel a little more concrete, a little more memorable. Which kind of leaves me wondering, and I want to ask you, what's the most creative or out-of-the-box way you've ever learned something complicated? Really makes you think. Thanks for digging into this with me.